So it's a great pleasure to be here on Halloween weekend, and it's an honor to be here with the officers of our great affiliated Local 23 San Antonio, and also standing with us today, Rick Levy, the president of AFL-CIO Texas. Also, I want to say hello to my old pal, Debbie Brooks from the Fort Worth Symphony, and all those folks up there who went through what they went through and how they turned out, how everything turned out for them. Also, Keith Carrick from the Utah Symphony is here. And all the other great folks that are with us tonight. And of course, we're all pleased and so very grateful to be here in support of one of actually the artistic crown jewel of this city. And I'm talking about the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony Orchestra. You know, San Antonio is a city that has brought so much greatness to Texas. It represents what is good and what is right and what is historic about San Antonio. And all of that good stuff has resonated throughout the world. Like the Alamo, just a few blocks away from here where we stand, where, you know, lives were lost. And I've heard the phrase, remember the Alamo, all of my life. And I came to understand that phrase not just in remembrance of a battle, but as inspiration and motivation when encountering things that seemed impossible to achieve and overcome. But San Antonio has produced sons and daughters whose lives reflect the culture and the motivation and the inspiration that we're talking about, like astronaut David Scott, who walked on the moon, or Joan Crawford, the actress, Tommy Lee Jones, you know, another great actor. Shaquille O'Neal came from here. I know there's some baseball folks out there, some basketball folks out there. George Strait is another great musician. Some fabulous musicians from San Antonio. Tish Hinojosa. Tish Hinojosa, sorry. The Texas Tornadoes, some of my favorites. You know, Def Som, Flaco, Augie, everybody knows those folks. You know, Alejandro Escovedo, Pat Green, probably, you know, or Chris Perez, or Emma Tenayuka, who led the 1938 pecan worker strike. I think at Pine Street right over there, I don't know if they named it for her, but, you know, I know there was a lot of leadership with that. And, you know, and then of course the folks that we're here to honor and to work for and to talk about tonight, the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony Orchestra. But you know, ever since I came to Texas a good while back to study jazz up in North Texas, right up I-35, by the way, in Denton, San Antonio has really grown. It's grown like a weed. And I'm not talking about weed. I'm not talking about because of weed, but you know, you're the 7th largest city in the country. There's 1.5 million people here. So I said 2 million? 2.3. 2.5 million. Must have grown in a couple of days. I was reading an article. It's pretty good. You celebrated your 300th birthday. And as we stand here shoulder to shoulder with our brothers and sisters of the symphony, we also want to acknowledge and celebrate the cultural and the artistic excellence that this orchestra has nurtured here. And it's an inspiration to music lovers everywhere. On behalf of the entire membership of the American Federation of Musicians of the United States and Canada, I want to thank the people of San Antonio for all that you have done in support of great music and in support of great musicians. Yes. And look what you have produced. And you did that by working together and getting involved in your great city. You did it by making a commitment toward improving the lives of the people of San Antonio. And you did it by improving the lives of the city's creative and performing artists, the singers and the dancers and the musicians and the working people and their families. And you did it by refusing to stand on the sidelines, and you're not standing on the sidelines tonight. You refuse to let the world go by without investing in the wonderful musical talent San Antonio has to offer. And as a great civil rights worker once said, if you're neutral in situations of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor.
That's right. That's right.
The people of San Antonio and the American Federation of Musicians and the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony Orchestra have never been neutral. Our mission and our music have always been part of that age-old struggle for dignity. See, how can I make this thing work? For dignity and the struggle that gave us the workplace that many of us take for granted today. The relationship between the city and its great orchestra covers more than 80 years. Covers more than 80 years. The relationship between the city and its orchestra is more than 80 years old. And during those 8 decades, there could be no doubt whatsoever that across this region, superb orchestral performances have changed so many lives for the better. So this is from the Symphony's website, and I quote, "A November 24, 1939 inaugural concert presented by the newly incorporated Symphonic Society of San Antonio launched the first season, which included 4 concerts. For each concert, 1/3 of the orchestra's 95 musicians were brought in from other Southwest cities. The orchestra enjoyed rapid growth, fueled by public enthusiasm, and became a fully professional orchestra by 1943.
Yes.
Yeah, and dig this. With a 16-week season and an annual budget of $100,000, making it one of America's 19 major orchestras and the only major orchestra in Texas.
Yeah.
So the people of San Antonio have gathered together for more than 80 years to enjoy these great performances for our culture and for the joy of living in this incredible city and this wonderfully cultural, diverse region. And as a great Texas musician once said, when we need music, when we need to ease our worried minds.
Yes.
Oh yeah. You know, you gotta have it. That's Delbert McClinton for you. That's what he said. I don't know if you know who Delbert McClinton is. He's from Fort Worth. One of my old pals. But, you know, there are troubled waters and there are troubled minds right here, right now. This is a situation you cannot afford to be neutral. But decade after decade, we've seen the ruling class, and I think you can look right back there and see what a monument to the ruling class is. You know, we've seen them consolidate their money and their power. We've seen American jobs outsourced overseas. We've seen our real wages decline, our benefits dwindle. Our job loads increase. And you're seeing and experiencing this, especially against the backdrop of the pandemic. And right here, where we're standing, in the shadow of the Alamo, our full-time jobs are under pressure to become part-time jobs or to be eliminated. And unfortunately, the folks who manage the Tobin Center and their lapdogs who run the San Antonio Symphony have decided that it's time for the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony, it's their time in the barrel, is what they're doing.
They should resign.
Resign!
Resign. Corporate pigs must go.
They think that it's time for these precious musicians to start to sacrifice their livelihoods, the health and safety and security of their families, make whatever economic concessions are demanded of them, and kneel at the altar of the Tobin Center.
No way!
That's what they want. That's what they want. Yeah, offer up the booty for the masters and the managers and the heads of the resident companies who are all held hostage. They're held hostage by this Tobin Center.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what's really going on right here. See,
Tell it.
it's obvious
Yes.
that the artistic stewards of San Antonio have abandoned the welfare and the interests of the artists who perform here,
Yes.
like our wonderful orchestra musicians, in favor of the financial needs of the Tobin Center.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. And the selfish people who run it and the selfish people who feed it.
Yeah. Right. Pigs at the trough.
Exactly. Here, is that Debbie?
No,
That's
Rachel.
what I thought.
Rachel Ray.
But here in San Antonio, our Trail of Tears leads directly to the Tobin Center management itself, those priorities, and particularly its head honcho. I want to talk about this people. Michael Fresher.
Yeah.
You know who that is? Michael Fresher. Here's a guy supposed to be doing everything humanly possible to promote and preserve and defend the interest of the center's 7 resident companies. But like the symphony, I'm talking about the symphony and the opera and the Ballet San Antonio, which if he did that, that would naturally improve the relationship between the musicians and the singers and the dancers of those companies and their management. Don't you see? I mean, that would improve everything. But pressure, like, Linda's back there. Linda's taking my red pages. But pressure doesn't do that. He does exactly the opposite.
That's right.
He does exactly the opposite. Let me tell you something you probably don't know. Just before the pandemic, Pressure announced the creation of a thing called Tobin Entertainment.
Oh yeah.
You ever heard of that?
Uh-huh.
You know what Tobin Entertainment is? So they can, quote, here's a quote, book and promote more lucrative events and generate more revenue
Really?
for the center.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I got that off the
For
web.
themselves.
Yeah, and if you look between the lines, what he's saying is the resident companies aren't making enough money for them.
Absolutely.
And he's saying, you know, that oh, by the way, guess who the CEO of Tobin Entertainment is?
Bruce Pop.
Michael Fresher.
Oh my God.
So I mean, instead of filling a date, you know, you got an open date, and you got an open date in the hall across the street, and instead of like going back to the symphony, the opera, the ballet, you got your own booking agency, and you know they could book somebody in there. You know, they could book Lyle Lovett or Bonnie Raitt or whoever. I'm not saying those are not good choices, but hey, what about the reason that they built this place in the first place? Yeah, so let me get into that. So according to the public access documents that I pulled up on the internet, just, you know, getting ready for this, the Tobin Center had assets of $172 million as of Halloween last year.
Wow.
See, their fiscal runs from Halloween to Halloween.
How appropriate.
Which is, you know, I mean, that's really appropriate, probably.
Yeah.
And Michael Fresher's salary, you want to take a guess about what his salary is?
No.
$342,000 a year. That's what he gets. Okay? As CEO of the center, I wonder how much money he's going to get to be the booking agent, to book the Tobin Entertainment acts. You know, I mean, who knows what he's going to be walking out of the door with, but it's going to be a lot of money.
It's not worth it.
They can take care of him. But they can't take care of the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony?
Bullshit.
See, he and his board are squeezing all the resident companies for more and more rent, a bigger cut of the ticket sales, and the irony in all this is you, the arts-loving public of San Antonio, you were sold on a $100 million bond package
That's right.
to lay the foundation for this palace that we look at over there. But the ruling class in this town, you know, they told you that, oh, these premier arts, these arts organizations in this wonderful historic city and the artists who perform, they're all going to benefit.
Bullshit.
See, prosperity is just around the corner. As soon as we can get this place built, you know, the good times are going to roll. That's exactly what they said. And I will tell you, that's exactly what they told me The folks up in Fort Worth, when they built Bass Hall, that's exactly what they did. And you know, they got along for a while, and then they turned on the symphony. They turned on the other arts organizations. And folks, I hate to tell you, but I think that's what's going on right here in good old San Antonio. See, it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out the way they said. The hall got itself built, and the resident companies are suffering. They sold the public on this thing. This $250 million they took out of the community. They built it in honor of and as a namesake for one family. And now they say there is no money to provide for the orchestra that existed 80 years before the first shovel was turned on the dirt and before the first jackhammer hit that place over there. You know, there was an orchestra here, and now there's that, and you don't have an orchestra. Now, where is the justice in that? You know, again, I got to say, according to the latest financial records, there's $172 million in it.
Wow.
That was as of Halloween last year. So who are the losers and the winners in this deal? Well, Michael Fresher's a winner.
Yeah.
Look at him. Look at his staff. They'll be grazing in the grass for years. So who are the losers? Well, the resident orchestras, the musicians of the San Antonio Orchestra, they're losers. You know, yes, you're right. The people of San Antonio are losers. And here's what the orchestra can look forward to as a result of all of this money. I mean, if they raised $250 and built it, and there's $172 million inside of it sitting there. You know, I mean, come on, that's a lot of dough. And then here we are out on the street under the bridges, you know, trying to find a way to eat.
And what about the PPP money?
I don't get it. I'm gonna get to that.
Get on it.
I'm gonna get to it,
Get
and I
it
hope
on.
I don't wear you out with all this.
No, bring it on.
Here's what the orchestra looks forward to. Can look forward to. They look forward to less work. They look forward to less pay. They look forward to fewer full-time jobs, a change in full-time jobs into part-time jobs. You see, we make all the music around here, and everybody else makes all the money. I mean, where in the world did that come from?
No justice.
Justice about that. That's right.
No
Perfect
justice.
word for it.
No justice.
You know, and the thing about it is you see, you know, we make all the music, everybody else makes all the money, and particularly who makes all the money are the managers.
Yep.
Did you ever buy a ticket to go see a manager manage? I mean, just raise your hand if you ever did that. I mean, I don't think I ever did it. But let's look at the management of this orchestra itself, and more formally, the organization itself is more formally known as the Symphony Society of San Antonio. So from the beginning of my days in Texas, I'd always heard of the greatness of the San Antonio Symphony, and I managed to hear the orchestra a while back, when Chris Wilkins was the conductor. And I tell you, I still remember that night, how great it was. And so look, I know there's an attitude that you get, when you've been around a conductor for a while. I won't go into it. The musicians can tell you. But you know what I'm talking about. And, I mean, I never met a conductor that I won't even go into that. But, that was a great concert that night, and it was excellent. And I came away thinking, I can't believe this orchestra is so good. It ranks right up there with the Dallas Symphony, and back then the Dallas Symphony was just really good. Still is, but still, I just remember thinking I did not expect this orchestra to be that good, and it really was. But I also knew that at the time the orchestra, the musicians and management were at odds. And they were at odds with each other over fair pay and benefits. Management was continually making 3-year deals and then asking to reopen and rebargain the out years in the contract, always asking, but that was always about trying to get the musicians to take less. Always to ask musicians to reduce their pay. And the musicians did that. From time to time. And no one in this community can say that the musicians refuse to work with management and the board of directors to help accommodate the financial pressure that everyone was under. And they reopened and they restructured contract after contract. In the background of all that, this community raises $250 million, and they still got $172 million inside of the place.
Wow.
You know? I mean, it just does not make any sense. And you know, on the other side of it, management. What did they do for the management? Let me tell you what they did for the manager. This guy's name is Corey Cole. So I understand that you know who that is, Corey Cole. You know. But his comp package went up 38% in 3 years. Yeah, dig this. So when, you know, back about 3 years ago, they were paying the head honcho of the symphony manager. They were paying him $96,000 a year. That's what he was getting. Now he gets $151,000 a year.
Wow. Be nice.
And does less.
And then he just left.
No, he does less.
Okay, well, yeah, all right. I'm gonna turn up. I'm gonna go get a hearing aid so I can hear better. But and then here's what he and the management have thrown at this precious orchestra. You know, we want to take 72 full-time musicians who currently make $35,000, and we want to cut them to 42 full-time musicians, making $24,000 a year. 4 musicians would be eliminated, and the remaining 26 musicians would receive $11,000 a year. So here's what this is. So if you survive the purge, you get either a $9,000 annual cut or you get a $24,000 annual cut. What kind of tragedy do we have happening here? I mean, and don't forget, there's $172 million sitting right there inside that building. And they're doing this. Now, I want to call out something else I spotted when I was looking at the company's tax records, you know, getting ready for the speech. Did you know that 2 board members loaned the symphony money recently?
Yeah.
You didn't know that? You know how much it was?
A couple million.
There was Robert Knapp. You ever heard of Robert Knapp?
Yep.
Unfortunately.
So Robert Knapp loaned the symphony $200,000. There was a lady named Kathleen Weir Vail.
Oh.
Wow.
Never heard of
She loaned him $245,000. But what was that all about? Yeah, why was that necessary? Anybody ever ask anybody why? You know, did those transactions buy influence in some sort of negotiation or something? You know, I just wonder about it. So, you know, but one thing is for sure, the Tobin Center and the Symphony Board and the managers have used and are using this worldwide health emergency as a pretext to starve these musicians out and get the concessions that the center and the board always wanted that would decimate and turn this orchestra into something else. They've always wanted to do that. They're trying to do it. But we are not going to let that happen. See, you know, we're in this terrible, you know, health crisis. And, you know, never mind that the majority of American symphonic institutions managed to meet their obligations to their communities and sustain their orchestras to continue to care for musicians while this pandemic raged, and which ravaged all of our lives. Many orchestras similar in size to San Antonio continue to perform and engage in streaming concerts, fulfill their artistic missions, and maintain their relationships with their subscribers, maintain their relationships with their communities, and continue to thrive. But not so here in San Antonio. They want to either do away with your job entirely or devastate you economically, and that way the musicians at the orchestra can mow lawns and sell carrots on the street corner on their days and their weeks off. It's a no-win situation, and it is unacceptable. Here.
Unacceptable.
Anyway, despite all this, you know, we have played perfect. And I will just say, this orchestra is fabulous.
Yeah. Yes.
It is absolutely fabulous. And despite the perfectly played, sold-out performances we've given, the recordings we've inspired you to watch and listen to, the spirits that we've raised, the recognition we brought to our benefactors in the community, and the money we've made for the businesses in this town, it's just not enough for Michael Fresher, and it's not enough for Corey Court, and it's not enough for these boards anymore. And that is a travesty to this community. Look at their balance sheets, though. Look at their balance sheets. I mean, it's just, all that money, but they can't take care of the orchestra, even under duress, even in COVID times. How much more money do they need? I mean, that's the real question you need to be asking them. How much more money do they need other than all those millions of dollars they've got over there? But in a positive way, something did happen. If you're a manager and you all that PPP money, if you've got all that money coming in and you don't have an orchestra you've got to pay for, hey, man, you're in the money.
Wow.
And be thinking about that. Where'd all that money go? Well, it went into a raise for Corey Court. That's one place it went. We talked about, the $96,000 that was being paid. Now it's $151,000, and they're out on the street.
Under the IRS.
And you know what? They paid him and gave him that money when he was trying to figure out how he could chop up the orchestra. So, and he's getting far more. He hauls off 3% of the company's take every year. Now, I looked at it. And, that's way more than most managers are getting paid for all this. And, but I think it's time for Michael Fresher and Corey Court and their boards to face the music here. And explain why they can figure out how to fatten up their own wallets, but they can't take care of the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony Orchestra. So brothers and sisters, all too often today we find we're no longer dealing with the executives who take a reasonable approach to labor relations. We're dealing with a new breed of managers who've forgotten what was clearly understood in the old days, that for the employer-employee relationship to function, there must be a fair bargain. And at the end of the day, we need to know that the wages and the benefits that we receive for what we do are fair. The concept of a fair bargain is at the heart of labor relations, and it's what motivates us to go to work. It's what allows us to provide for our family and contribute to the economy. It's what made this country great, because workers were motivated to work productively, and that's why we must work harder than ever to protect that concept.
Yes.
You hear all the time from managers of symphonic institutions that what is needed is a new business model. You heard that. That's code for cutting musicians' pay. That's code for eliminating people. Well, great music is one of the highest forms of artistic expression. It's not exactly a business. Neither are educational institutions or museums or art centers either. Musicians and orchestras are an invaluable artistic resource for San Antonio, and they ought to be afforded protection from the whims of managers and board chairs and art center people who think every dollar paid to a musician is a dollar they don't get. And that's what they think. And from what I've heard, Michael Fresher and Corey Court have no plans for musicians in this orchestra other than to offer them less work and less money. You see, it's about some phony business model to be paid for by those who make the music so that managers who don't, can get a raise. It's about management without music. That's what all of this is really about. It's the ugly face of union busting, and you can look at the Freshers and the Courts and you can see it right here in San Antonio. We bring you joy from our performances, but today all we get is pain. And I will tell you, the San Antonio Orchestra is an asset to this city. It is not a liability. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's music. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time looking at folks on the other side of the table who couldn't do what we musicians do in a million years, who make more money than we do, sometimes 10 times as much money as we do. and then ask us to take bread off our table and give it to them. You see, the managers wouldn't have a job if it weren't for us. Michael Fresher and Corey Court and their crews, they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be sitting on these jobs at all if it weren't for us. Every dollar in their pocket was put there by our labor. People come to see and hear us, not them. But the managers believe that it's they themselves who matter the most, that they are the focal point of importance despite their failure to manage. They think because they are giving us a place to play, that the act of playing in and of itself ought to be considered part of the compensation. That's what they think. Let me tell you, that's exactly what they think. This is the ugly face of union busting. If we don't stop it, nobody is ever going to. It almost destroyed us in 2008 with the financial crisis. It's threatening to destroy much of what we've achieved as labor over the past century. And if this great orchestra is silenced because of the misguided attitudes of management, it will be an irreparable, inestimable loss to this community. We have to turn up the volume. We cannot overcome bad management by thinking that, if we're good little boys and we're good little girls and we give them back some of our hard-earned gains, or we make a concession or two, or if we grovel hard enough, maybe they'll go easy on us. We can't do that. This is not the time to grovel to the union busters. And if the happenings in Fort Worth and orchestras elsewhere in this country have taught us anything, it's that if you grovel now, you will have a lot more to grovel for later. And if you don't believe me, just look around and see what they're trying to do to us here in every workplace, in every political arena, in every state in the country. So I say stand with us, stand with our courageous local officers and our rank and file musicians who are organizing and getting prepared for the fight. And we know only too well that if we don't resist now, the managers are going to use everything they can against us, just like they did today with the health insurance cutoff, with that stabbing. Oh, by the way, something important that was brought to my attention. Do you know that the boards of these companies, like the Symphony Board, they're now requiring them to sign a non-disclosure agreement to be on the board? Yeah, no kidding. That's a great question. I mean, that's how far this has gone. We can't let this stand. It's your money that built that place. And then they're going to keep you from knowing what the hell's going on inside. So, so ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that this is our struggle. It's the same for musicians and workers everywhere. We have a lot on our shoulders, but we can rise to the occasion and meet the challenge by being better and by reaching for our potential. We make music to uplift the human spirit.
Yes.
We will lift up ourselves and we will perform perfectly for those who look to us for hope. But most importantly, we have to challenge everybody to get involved. Everybody in this wonderful city to take care of each other. Because nothing will get better if we don't do better. We must support those who care about us. And I can tell you that no one cares more about San Antonio, Texas than the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony Orchestra. Standing together, we can make a difference. Nothing can withstand the power of our music. And thousands of us working together for unity today and now and in the future, we can all become leaders of change. Thousands of AFM musicians stand together on this important day in this great city of San Antonio, Texas, with AFM Local 23, the musicians of the San Antonio Symphony. When one of us are down, I'm going to channel Rick Ludy here. When one of us are down, we are all down. Your struggles are our struggles, but together we're going to make this world a better place. Thank you for having me to come see you today in San Antonio and speak to you and to be with you on this important day. God bless the San Antonio Symphony and God bless every one of you. God bless you all. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you.